What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the heaviest show in the universe. Today we're diving in to Inferi's new album, Vile Genesis. Is it a banger? Let's find out. Alright, so Inferi is a tech death band formed in 2006 in Nashville, Tennessee. And while they released a couple of albums in the 2010s, early 2010s, and before that, they really broke out in 2014 with their album The Path to Apotheosis. And they continued on that success with their 2018 album Revenant, which is a pretty damn good album if I do say so myself. They've really made a name for themselves in the tech death scene, touring with bands like Archspire and Obscura and Rivers of Nile. And their new album Vile Genesis is out under the label The Artisan Era, and they are getting ready to melt our faces once again. Where Inferi really excel is playing these melodic epic sections. And I always say there's three ways that you can play tech death. You can either play in an epic sense like Obscura and Fallujah, or you can play it in a brutal sense like Rivers of Nile and Archspire, or you can mix the two together, both epicness and brutality, and that's what Inferi does. So not only is this album a continuation of that sound, extremely heavy, extremely brutal, but there's crazy, epic, melodic sections in here which make you feel like you're riding a dragon through thunderclouds. And I want to start off by saying that this album artwork, just like their other ones, is absolutely fantastic. It really gives you a sense of the type of music they're going to play, what types of things they're going to sing about, and what type of vibe you're going to get from this album. Right off the bat, just looking at this fantastic cover art. And right off the bat, with No Gods But Our Flesh, you can automatically tell that the production here is really well done. A band like Inferi that's going to play these epic solos and these epic melody sections, it's really going to need that production value to make sure that the guitars aren't overshadowing the drums or the bass, and the vocals aren't overshadowing everything else, and that is a success here. Everything is produced well together. The way that Stevie Boyser, their vocalist, oscillates between high pitch and low pitch guttural vocals is really well done. It's really cool, and I've always really admired that about Inferi. One thing that makes Inferi different from other tech death bands is that they don't really rely on blast beats too much, and it really separates them from the pack. There are blast beats, and there's going to be blast beats, but they're not solely reliant on it. It's not overdone. What I noticed on this album that they really like to do is they love to play with the tempo. They love to play with the vibe. You're never really comfortable sitting at one setting through the album. And a perfect example of that is the first song, No Gods But Our Flesh, where they play with this bass interlude before going into a complete face ripper. And this is also present on From Exile to Exaltation as well. Malcolm Pugh and Mike Lowe are both fantastic musicians, and they really shine through in this type of music. This whole album shows exceptional musicianship, but really, these two guys are so good at what they do. Playing with melodies, mixing and matching tempos, and making sure that everything sounds incredibly epic. And Spencer Moore on the drums is fantastic as well. He stood out a lot to me. Again, not relying on the blast beat to make things heavy, but relying on rhythms and grooves and playing on the cymbal and the hi-hat way more than relying on which is a pattern that, you know, it happens sometimes in death metal, we gotta admit. And Andrew Kim on the bass does a great job as well, doing his part. There are a lot of times where they allow the bass to shine through, and it's very appreciated. The music on this album is very tight, it's very together. Everyone's on the same page, and there's no one trying too hard to stray from the path to make themselves known, because everyone gets their time to shine, essentially. And of course, this is tech death, so the guitars are going to shine through a lot more than anything else, with a lot of dweedly dees and doodly doos, and it sounds great. Like I said, this is very melody heavy and it's very solo heavy, and both of these guitarists are fantastic at what they do. And they're always able to take those melodies and those fantastic solos and switch them into heavy riffs like that. But that leads me to the problem with this album. So when it comes to tech death, there's definitely a pattern that bands can tend to fall into if they're not careful. Inferi on this album does fall into that pattern quite often. They'll go from riff to arpeggio to scale and then back to riff and then another riff and then another melody and another arpeggio and another scale and then another riff. They're not staying with anything for too long. It's like they're trying to fit as many melodies and solos and riffs into the song as possible. I found myself so many times going like, dude, damn, that was a sick riff. That was so heavy. That was so brutal. That was awesome. And it disappears. They don't stay with it. I find myself longing to grab that riff again. Take a listen to some of these absolutely sick riffs that only last for a few seconds. Of course, you never want to overplay a riff. You never want to rely on one riff too much, but you have to go back to it. If you want to make good songs, you have to go back to it. You have to have an anchor point in the song to make it good, to make it something that people want to come back to. A lot of this album lacks groove or choruses or hooks, and well, the lyrics, which are fantastic, they go and repeat sometimes as if it would be a chorus. The riffing and the melody doesn't repeat like a chorus. And if it does, it's not noticeable enough to make you want to come back to the music. And that is the biggest gripe with this album. They fall into the standard tech death pattern, and they always leave me wanting more riffs. Though they've put so many riffs into each song, I want more. I feel like I want more, but what I really want is that first riff that they played for like barely even 2 or 3 measures. And when what I'm looking for in the song is only there for 1 or 2 measures, well then I'm not gonna go back because I'm not gonna get enough of what I want out of the music. So while the musicianship here is fantastic from every angle, from the vocals and the lyrics to the drumming and the bass and especially the guitar work, it feels like they're not actually making songs. They're just making guitar porn. And while that's great for a little bit of time, in the end, it's not what I want to necessarily come back for because there's no hooks or anything like that to keep me coming back. What saves this album from not being very good is the fantastic musicianship, is those times when there's that sick riff that you're grasping onto because it's there. You can see that it's there. You can see that these guys have the talent and the want to make better songs, but they're stuck in the tech death pattern. And that doesn't mean you can't make catchy, awesome songs in tech death. That's not the case at all, and that's not what I'm trying to say. There's tons of that in tech death. What I'm saying is that these guys need to stop trying to fit so much into one song and really focus on the awesome parts of each song while still including those awesome drum fills, the bass interludes, and those fantastic solos that both Mike and Malcolm are so good at. These guys are all god tier musicians, absolutely, but it sounds like they're trying so hard to show that and so hard to prove that they're forgetting to make more awesome songs. Adding each individual score of each individual song up and dividing by the number of songs on the album, we get 7.6 out of 10, which is still a banger, but just barely. What saves this album is the guitar solos, is the drumming, is the musicianship of everyone in the band. But in order for these guys to be remembered, in order for these guys to go down in history with the Necrophagists and the Obscuras and the Archspires, they need to focus on writing better songs and not trying to make so much guitar porn or instrument porn in general. The songs that I want to recommend on this album are No Gods But Our Flesh, Maelstrom Prison, the title track, and From Exile to Exulsion. And though I was hard on this album at some times, I do recommend it as a whole if you want to hear some fantastic musicianship, but you'll probably give it a listen once over and unlikely you'll ever come back to it again unless you want to learn one of the songs or you want to show someone some fantastic musicianship. Alright, so what did you think of Inferi's Vile Genesis? Let me know down below. Am I missing something? Am I just not getting it? Am I completely off my rocker? Like, let me know down below what you thought of this album. I always like having these discussions, and I always like opening my mind up to these possibilities. So your input is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to go down below and bing bang boom one of these. Smash that subscribe button. Don't forget that notification bell so you never miss a video. And I will see you next time on the heaviest show in the universe. Long live metal.